Nobody believed a lion could feel grief. But on the morning of October 3rd, deep inside the Maasai Mara, a pride of lions stood motionless around a tiny spotted body lying still in the tall golden grass. And the eldest lion, a giant the rangers had named Kovu, did something no camera had ever captured before. He lowered his massive head. He pressed his nose against the cub's cold chest, and he let out a sound that made every ranger in the jeep go completely silent. It wasn't a roar. It was something closer to a moan. Long, trembling, ancient. A sound that traveled across 4 miles of open savanna and sent every animal into silence. That roar started a chain of events that would bring this entire to extinction, and then pull them back from the that no scientist could fully explain. This is the story of a lion who refused to give up on his family. A story of loss, survival, doesn't need words. If you've ever felt your heart break for an animal, drop a lion face in the comments right now. You're going to want to stay for every single second of what happens next. 6 months before that terrible morning, the Mara River Pride was the largest and most successful pride in all of Kenya's Maasai Mara. 14 lions, 7 lionesses, 4 young males, 3 cubs born just 11 weeks apart, and at the center of it all Kovu. Kovu was 12 years old. For a wild lion, that is ancient. His mane had gone almost completely black, streaked with silver at the edges, and he walked with a slight drag of his left hind leg from a fight years earlier. But none of that diminished him. If anything, every scar told the story of what this lion had survived to protect the ones he loved. The rangers who had spent years studying this pride said Kovu was different from other dominant males. Most male lions stay on the edges of a pride. They patrol, they protect, they eat first. They don't participate in cub rearing the way lionesses do. But Kovu was always in the middle of things, always there when the cubs were scared, always the first to return to the pride after a patrol, as if something inside him couldn't stand to be away from them for too long. His bond with the head lioness, a 10-year-old female the rangers called Amara, was something the team talked about for years. Amara had lost 2 litters before these 3 cubs. Each time, hyenas or rival males had found the dens before the cubs were strong enough to run. Each time, Amara had survived, and each time Kovu had stayed. He didn't leave to find a younger lioness. He didn't abandon the pride for easier territory. He stayed, right beside Amara, season after season. Dr. Naomi Adhiambo, the lead wildlife researcher tracking this pride, wrote in her journal, "In 14 years of field work, I have never observed a dominant male exhibit this level of consistent pair bonding. Kovu behaves less like a king and more like a partner." The rains failed that year. By April, the Mara's famous grass had turned from gold to gray. The rivers fell. The wildebeest migration, usually a reliable flood of prey, shifted east and never fully arrived in Kovu's territory. The pride began to struggle. The lionesses were hunting every single day and failing more often than not. Prey animals had moved deeper into protected zones the lions couldn't follow. The cubs, now 4 months old, needed constant feeding, and the older male lions needed even more. It was Kovu who began pulling back from his own food first. The rangers watched, stunned, as he consistently walked away from kills before he had eaten enough, allowing Amara and the cubs to eat more. He was losing weight, but he didn't stop. And that's when the hyenas arrived. A clan of 32 spotted hyenas moved into the eastern edge of Kovu's territory. 32 against 14 lions. The numbers were terrifying. Hyenas don't fight fair, they test. They probe. They wait for weakness. And this pride had started to show it. It happened on a Tuesday night. The rangers had gone back to camp. The GPS trackers showed the pride resting near the northern kopje, a rocky outcrop they often used for safety. Everything seemed normal. At 2:17 in the morning, the tracking data went chaotic. Dr. Odhiambo described it later. The GPS signals started scattering in every direction. That's what happens when a pride runs in panic. Everyone goes a different way. My stomach dropped. I knew something terrible had happened. By the time they reached the copy at 3 a.m., the hyena clan had dispersed back into the darkness. The lions were scattered across nearly 2 miles of terrain. And then they found the cub. Her name was Zuri. She was 4.5 months old. She was the smallest of the 3 cubs. And she was the one Kovu had watched over most carefully, because she had been born a few days early and had always been a little behind her siblings. She didn't survive the attack. The researchers sat in the jeep and nobody spoke for a very long time. And then they watched Kovu do what no textbook had prepared them for. He climbed to the top of the copy. He sat down, facing east, facing the sunrise. And he roared. Not an aggression, not a warning. It was something else. Something that sounded, even to the researchers listening through the jeep's open windows, like something close to grief. He roared 7 times, at long intervals, each one fading slowly into the silence of the savannah. And then he was quiet. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this story, because what Kovu does next changed everything. The weeks that followed Zuri's death, the pride began to fracture. The 2 youngest adult males, brothers named by the research team as Duma and Siku, left. Drought and loss had pushed them toward finding easier territory. It wasn't cruelty, it was survival, but it meant fewer defenders for the pride. Then one of the remaining lionesses suffered a badly infected wound from a thorn deep in her paw. She couldn't hunt. She could barely walk. Amara was losing weight fast. Her milk was beginning to dry up. The 2 surviving cubs, a male and a female, were not gaining weight the way they should be. Dr. Odhiambo's team faced an agonizing decision. Intervention policies existed for exactly this scenario, situations where a pride was critically endangered. They could provide supplemental feeding. They could intervene. But the senior ranger, a man named Joseph Kipkemoy, who had spent 30 years working in the Mara, said something that stopped everyone. He said, "Give Kovu 1 more week. I want to see what this lion decides to do." It was a controversial decision. Some team members disagreed. The cubs might not have a week. But Joseph had seen something in 30 years of watching wild animals that no university could teach. The ability to recognize when a wild creature still had a plan. "Look at his eyes," Joseph said quietly, watching Kovu through the binoculars from the jeep. "That lion is not done." On the 5th morning of Joseph's 1-week window, at 4:45 a.m., Kovu moved alone into the Mara's central plains. A dominant male hunting solo is extremely unusual. Males typically rely on lionesses for hunting. Their size makes them visible. Their mane catches the eye of prey from hundreds of meters away. The odds were against him from the start. Kovu had not eaten properly in 11 days. He stalked a zebra herd for 90 minutes. The research team, following at a distance with their lights off and engines going, watched through night vision. Nobody breathed. At 6 a.m., as the sun cracked the horizon on charge, he was slower than he once was. The young Kovu who had fought different times had been faster, stronger, more fluid, but experience is a different kind of speed. He had learned in 12 years of hunting exactly where the zebras would turn, exactly where the gap would open. At 6:19 a.m. it was over. He didn't eat first. He raised his head and he called. The sound traveled. Across the grass, the pride heard their lion. They had always known that specific pattern of sounds that meant, "Come, it's safe. I have something for you." The research team watched Amara. emerged from the tree line 40 minutes later and reached the kill. Kovu stepped back, and he watched his family eat. Dr. Adhiambo later wrote in her published paper, "We have documented dominant males prioritizing pride members over self-feeding in extreme conditions before, but the consistency with which Kovu maintained this behavior across an 11-day period of personal starvation represents something we did not have strong prior documentation for." This lion's behavior challenges several assumptions about male investment in multi-female pride structures. In other words, science didn't fully have a word for what Kovu was doing, because what Kovu was doing looked a lot like love. 3 weeks after the hunt, Duma and Siku came back. Nobody could fully explain why. The researchers speculated, had they heard Kovu's roars? Had the territory they moved to proven more dangerous? Had some instinct pulled them back? Joseph said, "Lions know their pride. When the pride is strong, they feel it." Kovu's hunt changed the energy of this territory. Even from miles away, that matters. The reunion was documented on film and has since been shared millions of times. It shows Kovu thinner than before, moving with more difficulty, walking slowly toward Duma and Siku. There's a moment where all three lions pause, and then Duma pushes his head against Kovu's mane, and Kovu leans into it. The whole pride comes closer. Joseph heard saying quietly, "There it is. There's your pride." 2 weeks later, the rains finally came. The grass grew in days, the rivers rose, the wildebeest turned west, the rain returned. And the Mara River pride, now 11 strong with Duma and Siku back, and the 2 surviving cubs growing fast, began to recover. The male cub the researchers named Jabari. He was Amara's son, black-maned from almost the beginning like his father. The female they named Zawadi, Swahili for gift, because that is what she felt like to everyone who had watched this pride nearly disappear. A gift the savannah had somehow decided to give back. When Jabari was 18 months old, Kovu began taking him on patrols. Not teaching him to fight, not demonstrating dominance, just walking the borders of their territory together, side by side. The old lion and the young one learning through proximity what it meant to belong to something. "It was the most extraordinary thing I have ever filmed," said the wildlife cinematographer Marcus Eliud, who had embedded with the research team for 3 months. 2 lions walking in step. One of them is almost at the end of his life. The other one is just beginning. And somehow you could feel, watching them, that something was being passed between them that had nothing to do with genes or instinct. "It looked," Marcus said, "like a father teaching a son." Kovu and Amara were still together. In the wild, lion pairs don't last forever. Dominant males get replaced by younger rivals. Lionesses move between coalitions. The mathematics of survival rarely allow for permanence. But these 2 had made it through drought, through the loss of Zuri, through the near collapse of everything they had built together, and they were still there. Still choosing the same relationship, still sleeping within touching distance of each other. Still somehow together. Kovu lived to be 13 years and 4 months old. For a wild lion, every challenge the Amara could throw at him, who had gone 11 days without eating to keep his family alive, who had absorbed grief and kept going. 13 years and 4 months was a long life. He died on a morning in late November, lying in the grass near the koppie where he had once roared into the dawn over Zuri's body. The vets who reached him confirmed he had gone peacefully. His body was simply finished. The pride gathered around him. Jabari stood at the edge, facing the plains, the way his father had once done. Amara lay beside Kovu and didn't move for many hours. The researchers watched from a distance and did not interfere. This moment belonged to the lions. 3 months after Kovu's death, Zawadi, his granddaughter, gave birth to 4 cubs. The Mara River Pride now numbers 16 lions. The researchers named the largest male cub Kovu. We spend so much time wondering what separates us from the animals. We ask whether they feel, whether they love, whether they grieve. We build studies and gather data and debate definitions. And then a 12-year-old lion starves himself for 11 days so his family can eat. And he roars into the dawn over the body of a cub he couldn't save. And he walks his son along the borders of everything he built, teaching him silently what it means to belong. And suddenly, the question feels a little less important than it did before. Because whatever Kovu felt, whatever word you want to use for what moved through that lion every single day of his life, it looked, from where we were sitting, exactly like what the best of us hoped to be. It looked like love, and it looked like enough. If Kovu's story moved you even a little, share this video right now. Someone you know needs to see this. And subscribe so you never miss another story like this one. These animals deserve to be seen. Lion Red.